Make UK great again. So Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party are totally taking over the UK. It's kind of crazy. Like the Brexit Party was formed just 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they're totally leading the polls, just taking over. There's people on the left and the right over there supporting the party. There's even people that don't even want the Brexit vote to happen that are actually supporting them just because they're supporting democracy. Like their whole logic is like, look, like the people voted for Great Britain and the UK to leave the European Union, and it happened 3 times that people voted for it, and the government just didn't go through with it. So they're saying like, look, we don't even agree with it, but it like we should have left the EU by now just based on what the people voted. And it's kind of crazy what's going on, the movement going on over there. It's kind of you know Nigel Farage definitely is super charismatic, has very much like big dick Trump like energy, and been watching like just all the interviews going on YouTube, and it's kind of crazy. They kind of have the same fake news media going on over there as we do in America, where like the BBC is actually funded by the British government, and they're basically acting like CNN. They're totally like not even giving the Brexit Party a fair shake, even though they're like crushing it in the polls. It's definitely reminds me of like Trump's campaign, and it's cool to see like this super like nationalist movements kind of take over there with the Brexit Party. And I guess there's like other movements spawning up in other countries as well that also want to leave the EU, but I don't know if any of them are as like powerful as the Brexit Party going on right now. Yeah, but it's kind of crazy with like 5 or 6 mainstream parties that the Brexit Party is polling at, where it's at. I think it's at like 35% or even higher than that, out of like 5 or 6 like major candidates, and they only have one policy, and that's to leave the European Union. I believe it's on a like a no deal policy, because I think like Theresa May was like trying to like leave, but like give them 40 billion for leaving, which just kind of seems like a scam. And she definitely seems like she's part of the globalist New World Order. So people are even saying in interviews, like asking Nigel Farage, like, hey, are you going to run for like prime minister next? I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching him do these interviews. It's like, damn, the kind of like, public support he's getting for the Brexit Party that he only founded like 3 weeks ago, and it only has one policy, which is to leave. And like all these other, conservative and liberal Democrat kind of groups, they all have like these giant manifestos, and it kind of makes sense to me just to have a party focused like on one thing, like people on the left and right can agree on. And it'll definitely be interesting to see. I mean, I definitely think they're gonna win just based on the polls and like all the media coverage. Like I've watched like just in the past week, I've watched like a couple hours of interviews that Farage has given and speeches, and I'm not even I live in America, and it's just like he's very charismatic, and I definitely think he's gonna win, unless it's rigged. Anyways, it's just kind of fascinating to see all these like nationalist movements kind of pop up all over the world right now. But I think it definitely has to do with like the world economy is just kind of slowing down, kind of like it was in 2008. So that's why like all these kind of nationalist movements are starting to pop up, which I think is a good thing. Like, what does the European Union really do? Like, I guess it kind of made sense after World War II to kind of like get everyone on the same team to like kind of support each other. But now it's been so long since then, it's just kind of like this bureaucratic overhead that doesn't really help anyone except for the people that run the EU. Like those are the only people really benefiting. So it'll be cool to see. It's definitely super entertaining. Can't wait for Nigel Farage to win, and then see the clips of him going to Brussels in the meetings and just like having a good old time. And I think it's kind of interesting too, just seeing like YouTubers becoming like running for political office over there too. Like for UKIP, you got Sargon of Akkad, and then you got Count Dankula, who's one of the funniest names ever. But I just want to see him interviewed, and people like calling him Count Dankula as like, I hope that's the name he's running under, like not just his regular name, that he's just going with like Count Dankula. But Man, it's definitely fascinating. Yeah, the election's happening on May 23rd, so in a couple days from now. So it'll definitely be pretty, I think it's on Thursday, and definitely be pretty interesting to see that. Yeah, and with the 2020 election, I just saw Pete Buttigieg on Fox News, which is actually kind of a good move because like Bernie Sanders did pretty well. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't end up watching the whole thing because like they split it up into four parts. I don't know why they did it on the Fox News YouTube channel, but anyways, like I watched through the first two parts and then I was like, yeah, it wasn't really anything new. It was just kind of the same old thing. There were a couple hard hitting questions, but it just wasn't as engaging as like Bernie's town hall was. But he's still pretty good at them as far as other people go. He is kind of dropping in the polls a little bit from where he was at before, I think by a point or two. But he's still like, third or fourth position. Tulsi Gabbard ended up going on Joe Rogan's podcast again because I guess when she went on a couple months ago, she wasn't officially running for president. So now that's why she went back on so shortly after her previous time going on, is because now she's officially running. I think that's pretty cool. That she's like, anti-war and all that. Makes a lot of sense to me. We're spending all this money overseas, but these kind of endless wars. She also like said she's like open or looking into universal basic income, which I thought was pretty interesting. She's, I don't know if she's really moved up, maybe a little bit. She's moved up in the polls, but she's polling at like, 1% to 0%. So she definitely needs, maybe she should start doing some like Fox News town halls, like to kind of boost her profile to the public. I think she might have qualified for the debate because I think you need like 1%. I'm not sure. I would have to check that out again. Yeah, and on Andrew Yane's front, saw a couple interviews he did, like some local coverage he did like in New Hampshire stations. There's a couple like hour-long interviews on YouTube about that. He's been kind of flatlining a little bit in the polls as well at like 2%. His range is kind of like 1% to 3%, so he could, he still has room to grow up, which is good. I think it's kind of interesting that like every politician has had an answer to universal basic income, which is kind of interesting to me. Like there's all these compilations of like all the 2020 Dem candidates talking about it, and even Bernie, like some guy asked him about the $1,000 a month freedom dividend, and Bernie said like, no, like let's just guarantee jobs for people, which I thought was kind of interesting. But even like some of the financial guys are starting to talk about it, which is even more fascinating. Like randomly, like Jeff Gunlock in an interview talked a couple minutes about Andrew Yang and the freedom dividend. He wasn't sure if it would work out, but he was saying like he gets why millennials are like, hey, like look, like all the baby boomers are, benefiting from all these like Social Security and Medicare and all this stuff, and it's like we're the ones paying for it, but like, before we even get started as adults in our careers, like we're already, have this massive student loan debt, like, and the house prices are inflated, so you don't even really have much opportunity. He's like, yeah, like I kind of get that, like, and based on just the US dollar inflating, he's like, you might need something like universal basic income. So I thought that was interesting that even some of the financial guys are like, that might actually happen. Yeah, I saw an interview with Trump. I guess it was from a week ago, but it just came out like yesterday. And, he talked about Iran and everything. And Trump did say like he didn't want to go to war with Iran, which is good and all. So I guess he's just using it as like a tactic to basically hurt their economy and be like, hey, like don't threaten us, like we'll threaten you just the same. So I mean that makes sense. Like why would we want to go to war? Like it doesn't really. And it was kind of crazy too. Like he said like, yeah, like the military industrial complex, like yeah, that's a real thing and they want war. Like whoa, okay. But I guess like that's a known thing, but it was just kind of interesting hearing Trump talk about that so openly. Yeah, Iran and then China, the whole China trade thing. It's kind of weird. Like the stock market, it's like it's up one day, then it's down a couple days, then it's up a day. It's kind of crazy how much control Trump has over the market with like just tweeting. Yeah, it is kind of fascinating what's going on with that for sure. I don't know how, I mean, it sounds like the tariffs might be there for a long time, the 25%. Sounds like businesses are just moving, like just getting up and moving their entire factories, I guess, from China to like Vietnam or something. And I guess it's working. Makes sense, like 25%, that's like, can cut pretty heavily into profits, or it can wipe out profits entirely. So that's like a pretty big deal. And yeah, like I could definitely, it could definitely hurt China. I mean, it's kind of crazy how like they went from having like 10 trillion in debt in 2007 to now like 40 trillion in debt in like 12 years. So they're double what we are at 20 trillion for the US. So it's like for a short amount of time they were ahead of us, but then now they've just way printed way more money than we even have. So it's kind of interesting what's going on there. Yeah, that's it for this episode, and subscribe for more videos like this, and thanks for watching.